It's the Spooky Show with Willie.
Greetings, ghouls, and welcome to the Spooky Show. I be your host, Willie Muse, the saltiest sailor in all the void of unimaginable horrors, and today I'm gonna make you landlubbers walk the planks as I take you on a journey across the high... lakes. We're doing lake monsters today. I don't know why I'm talking like a pirate. I'll be honest. The only reason I picked this topic was so that I could wear my adorable sailor suit because, otherwise I'd look ridiculous eating this giant lollipop. That said, though I didn't put a lot of thought into this topic, I'm happy I picked it because it gives us the opportunity to talk about a lot of really cool creepy critters, specifically the granddaddy of all cryptids, the Loch Ness Monster. Now, a lot of people claim to have seen this guy with their own eyes, while a lot of other people think he's just a hoax. I personally can't say for sure firsthand because I've never been to Scotland because they took away my passport that summer I accidentally joined Al-Qaeda. That said, the no-fly list can't stop me from doing research, and that's exactly what I did. So, rather than mince words, let's just go straight to the question of the day, which is the Loch Ness Monster real? It's a very simple question with a very complicated answer. Now, before we can make like a lake monster and do a deep dive into the topic, we should probably take a little seckaroo to talk about what exactly this legendary guy is. Reports vary, but generally speaking, he's thought to be a large plesiosaur-like amphibious creature with a long neck and little flippy fins on its sides. It is said to inhabit Scotland's Loch Ness and is apparently very elusive, having only been seen by a select group of people. The first of these modern sightings reportedly took place in 1933 after construction on a roadway gave people access to the loch that they never had before. As more people were making their way down to the water, they brought with them more sets of eyes, and it wasn't long before someone saw something that they thought looked like a monster. This initial sighting sparked a national interest in the creature, which in turn led to more sightings and even a professional search for it led by famed big game hunter Marmaduke Wetherall. I shit you not, that is his real name. Everyone wanted a glimpse at Nessie, and in 1934, it seemed like they had it when someone put forth an honest-to-goodness picture of the beast that catapulted it into legendary status. The picture was put forth by a surgeon named Robert Wilson, and if you know anything about the Loch Ness Monster, then you probably have already seen it. Dubbed the surgeon's photo after Wilson's profession, it does seem to depict a large plesiosaur swimming around in the loch. And what's more, because it was put forward by such a high-standing member of society, it was instantly granted a level of credibility that most pictures of dinosaurs could only dream of having. It wasn't long before Wilson's photo had people believing in the unbelievable. And to this day, the surgeon's photo remains without a doubt the most famous piece of Loch Ness Monster evidence that there is. Although that said, it's not the only piece of Loch Ness Monster evidence that there is. Since the release of this photo, there have been countless other eyewitness reports of the creature, many of which are accompanied with their own photo and video evidence. Though most of these kind of just look like blurry black dots floating in the water, there are a couple of them out there actually that look pretty convincing if you're willing to keep an open mind. What's more is the fact that the Loch Ness Monster is not the only lake monster that people are reporting seeing. There are lots of similar stories from around the world that bear striking similarities to reports of Nessie. Lake Champlain's Champ in New England and Lake Okanagan's Ogopogo in Canada both seem to be fairly consistent with whatever Nessie is, and not only that, but all the lakes in question share a very similar profile, meaning that if these creatures are related in some way, then they're all living in a very similar habitat, which would make sense. Perhaps even more interestingly is the fact that in all these cases, there's a history there. There are lots of stories and legends from the past that seem to line up with reports of creatures like the Loch Ness Monster, suggesting that these creatures have been around all along. The most notable of these in the case of Nessie is legends of kelpies. Kelpies were shape-shifting water spirits said to inhabit Scottish lakes, causing all sorts of mischief. They were able to take all kinds of forms designed to drag people to their watery deaths, the most common of which was that of a horse. This is where they get their nickname, Water Horse, which in turn is where that movie you don't remember got its name from. This is also where it ties back to reports of Nessie because, well, horses and plesiosaurs do kind of look alike, or at least share the same general shape. A little, if you squint. And you're looking for reasons that the Loch Ness Monster is real. Now, if you guys are saying that unsubstantiated eyewitness reports and folklore isn't good evidence, well, you are right. I'll be honest, I had a lot of trouble finding any evidence to support Nessie that felt substantial in any way. Sorry. But hey, at least we still have the surgeon's photo, and a picture is worth 1,000. I don't know why I'm even trying. We all know that one's fake too. In 1994, a 90-year-old man named Christian Sperling confessed to faking the famous surgeon's photo, and you guys will never guess who the mastermind behind the whole thing was. Goddamn Marmaduke Weatherall! Remember that expedition I told you about earlier? Well, during it, Weatherall found some weird footprints leading into the loch that he said belonged to Nessie, but when experts took a closer look at them, it turned out that they were made by a dry hippo's foot, because apparently that's something that Scottish people had access to back in the day. After the whole incident, Weatherall was humiliated, and he actually had to retreat from the public eye because of it. As such, like any badass named Marmaduke would do, he decided to avenge his shattered reputation by fooling everyone. He went to his stepson Christian Sperling for help and had him create a fake monster, which as it turns out was nothing more than a toy serpent glued onto a toy boat. The two men floated their creation into the water and photographed it, and then they passed their photo on to Robert Wilson, knowing that his high standing in society would lend their photo some credence. And really, just as simple as that, the three men pulled off one of the greatest hoaxes in history. Now, I know what you're thinking, and before you go saying, oh, just because someone confessed to faking the picture doesn't mean that he actually faked it, you should probably take a look at the uncropped photo. Yeah, it's not as impressive. And truth be told, even if the surgeon's photo wasn't a proven hoax, there would still be a lot of evidence to suggest that the Loch Ness Monster isn't everything it's cracked up to be. As you might imagine, there's a lot of evidence to support the idea that a mystical dinosaur monster isn't actually a thing. So I'll just limit my explanation to what I think is the simplest of these. Basically, if this creature does exist, then it would have to follow some basic scientific rules that all other animals follow. And the fact of the matter is, it just doesn't. Not to get too scientific, but if this thing is some sort of undiscovered megafauna, then it would need a large breeding population in order to sustain itself. Basically, if there's one of these things, then there are a lot of these things, and, well, the lake isn't all that big. While one plesiosaur might be able to hide, 100 probably wouldn't, especially when literally everyone in the world is trying to find them. Furthermore, if there were a large population of dinosaurs in the loch, then their effect would almost certainly be felt, even if they were the best damn hiders in the goddamn world. Damn. Animals fit into a larger ecosystem, and these things really don't seem to be present in the ecosystem that's at play in Loch Ness. There simply isn't enough fish there to sustain a population of creatures this large, and even if hypothetically they all just didn't eat and starve themselves from the moment that they were born, then they'd be leaving behind a bunch of emaciated dino corpses, and nobody has found any of those yet. Obviously, there's not a large population of Nessies living in Loch Ness, but maybe you're wondering right now, what if there is just one? A lot of people suggest that Nessie is a single plesiosaur that's left over from the dinosaur days, and if you are one of those people who buys into that, then no offense, but you're very dumb. And to see why, you just need to do the math on it. Plesiosaurs lived 203 million years ago, which is an unfathomable amount of time. And while I couldn't find their average life expectancy, it was definitely shorter than that. Let's be extremely generous and say that they lived to be 1,000 years old, which, trust me, they did not. Okay, so 203 million divided by 1,000 equals... Well, it equals math I don't really feel like doing right now. But rest assured that if this thing was a holdover from some previous era, it would be living so far past its life expectancy that the fact that it's a giant aquatic dinosaur would literally be the least interesting thing about it. This is all to say that I don't think that DJ Nessiness is actually a plesiosaur, but if that's the case, then, well, what is it? Well, unfortunately, I think that in this case, the most logical explanation is also one of the least exciting. I'm of the camp that I think people's eyes are just playing tricks on them. Misidentified sturgeons, birds, and even logs are thought to play a part in tricking people into thinking that they have seen a Loch Ness monster. And while all those things seem kind of far off from being an ancient dinosaur creature, except maybe sturgeon, because Jesus Christ, get that thing away from me. I'm actually inclined to believe this explanation. One thing that can't be overlooked when discussing the Loch Ness monster and all lake monsters is just how associated they have become with the lakes that they're said to inhabit. When people visit these places, you had better believe that a lot of them are looking for something out of the ordinary. Like I said, I've never been to Loch Ness. I have been to Lake Champlain, and you had goddamn better believe that I was trying to spot Champ at every chance I got. With every little piece of debris or slight ripple that floated by me, my first thought was always, holy shit, it's the creature, even though it never actually was. Thinking back on my time on Lake Champlain kind of made me think of the kelpies and their ability to shapeshift, because in a weird way, that's what was happening there. For the briefest of seconds, I saw a lake monster before my mind made sense of it, and it changed forms into whatever bird or log it actually was. Lakes are just blank canvases of constantly moving, nebulous shapes, and it makes sense that they would be very good at messing with our brains. If everyone is looking out on the water trying to see a lake monster, there's no doubt in my mind that eventually a few people will. So, is the Loch Ness monster real? Well, like I said, it's a very simple question with a very complicated answer. If the question was, is there a plesiosaur floating around Scotland right now, I'd say the answer is definitely no. But that said, there are a lot of people who have seen something that I think felt very real to them, and if that's the case, then who am I to tell them that they're wrong? Whether it physically exists or not, the Loch Ness Monster has impacted a lot of lives and affected a lot of people, and maybe that alone makes it realer than most real things. This is where a better show would delve deep into a discussion on the nature of reality and the relativity of truth, but unfortunately, I'm far too dumb for that, so instead, I'm just gonna take a couple more licks of my lolly. That's it for me, guys. But before I go, let me say that if you think that I'm an idiot who completely missed the mark, you should please post why in the comments, because honestly, nothing would make me happier than if you could prove to me that there is in fact a dinosaur in the British Isles. Also, please like, subscribe, share, skywrite, all that fun stuff to help me grow the show. Living in this void, this is my one joy in life, so nothing would make me happier than if you guys could help me spread the spook. Other than that, I don't have much to say other than I'm Willie Muse, and this was The Spooky Show. See you later, ghouls.